of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.
Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy.
Wisdom, let my prayer arise in thy sight as incense.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book Family Life, the fourth volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios. Help for children who have strayed. It is essential to have an atmosphere of love and peace at home. If children receive a little love at home, even if they should stray for a while, they will see that they can't find love anywhere else, only hypocrisy, and they will return home. However, if they can only remember ugly scenes at home, arguments and enmity, how can they find the heart to go back? Yeronda, what should the parents do when a child leaves home? They should try to keep in touch with the child so that when he comes to his senses, he will be able to return home. They should speak kindly to their child, raise his awareness in order to help him. Let's say a child comes home late at night. His mother should approach him and say, "Look here, my child. If you were in my place and your children stayed out late at night, wouldn't you be very worried?" Even the most serious fall of the children shouldn't make parents desperate, for sin has become fashionable in our time. They should always keep in mind the following. Nowadays, young people will be granted certain extenuating circumstances and will be judged with leniency for their transgressions. Today, a grade of 7 for conduct is the equivalent to the 10 excellent of our school days. Of course, parents will always try to help their children, but they mustn't be overly anxious. Children will get more sensible and experienced with time. Right now, they may not understand what is good because their mind has not yet matured. Their mind is cloudy, and it lacks the clarity to discern the danger that lies ahead and the irreparable damage they can suffer. It would be good if the parents indicated to the child that they do get upset over unacceptable behavior, but they mustn't become overbearing. And of course, they should continue to pray. Prayers spoken with pain are effective. If the child does something very serious, the parents must intervene appropriately. If it isn't so serious, then they can overlook it a while so as to not provoke the child and make the situation worse by causing the child to distance himself from them. They must pray to Christ and Panagia to protect their child. The prayer of the parents, and particularly of a mother, because it is from the heart and has pain, is readily heard. When I was at the Skiti of Aviron, a young man came by chance and found me. He was wandering in Chalkidiki, found some group of pilgrims coming to the holy mountain, and came with them to the Kelion. My goodness, he was an atheist, blasphemous, most impudent. He had a devilish cleverness and believed in nothing. He swore at all of the other pilgrims, young and old. With patience and a little effort, I brought him to some reckoning. I gave him a haircut too, because he had very long hair. Look, I told him, may your mother be well, for it was certainly her prayers that brought you here. You're right, Father, he told me. I was wandering in Chalkidiki, and I don't even know how I got here. If your mother finds out that you have come here to the holy mountain and sees you with your hair cut, she will feel such joy for you. How did you know that, Father? My mother will truly be overjoyed to see me so changed, he responded. God turned him this way and that way and guided him to the Master. How much prayer his mother must have poured out for him. Reprimanding and praising a child. Parents must be very careful not to reprimand their children in the evening, because at that time, when the children have nothing to distract them from their troubles, the darkness of the night will make their troubles darker still. They start thinking of ways to react. They search for different solutions. Then the devil gets involved, and the children can even reach a state of hopelessness. If children are reprimanded during the day, they can go out, the troubled darkness disperses, and they eventually forget their trouble. Yaronda, does a beating help to correct children? As much as they can, parents should refrain from beating their children. Through kindness and patience, they should try to help the children understand that what they're doing is wrong. Only when children are very young and don't understand that what they're trying to do is dangerous, then it may help to give a little slap that will make them avoid whatever it is they are doing the next time. The fear of getting another slap serves as a brake for protection. When I was little, my mother was more helpful to me than my father. Both of them loved me and wanted only what was good for me. Each one helped me in their own way. My father was strict. Whenever we, as small children, did something bad, he slapped us. I could feel the sting of the slap and would restrain myself for a while. But when the pain passed, I would forget both the pain and my father's advice. It wasn't that he didn't love me. He gave me those slaps out of love. I remember one time when my father gave me a slap. I was 3 years old. That sent me flying. What had happened? There was an abandoned house next to ours. The owners had moved to America, and the house had just fallen apart. In the yard, there was a fig tree whose branches reached out to the street. It was summertime, and the tree was full of figs. As I was playing with the other children, a neighbor came and lifted me up to pick some figs for him because he couldn't reach them on his own. I cut 5 or 6 figs for him, and he gave me a couple too. When my father learned of this, he became very angry. He gave me a slap. I started crying. My mother, who was present, turned around and told him, "Why are you slapping the child? What did he know? He's only a child. How can you stand it hearing him cry?" But my father explained his reasoning. If he had cried when the man lifted him to pick the figs, he wouldn't be crying now. But it seems that he too wanted to eat some figs, so let him cry now. I didn't dare do it again. My mother also noted my mischief, but she had a certain noble spirit about her. When I did something naughty, she would turn her face away and pretend not to see me, so as to not make me sad by having to scold or reprimand me. But this behavior of hers would break my heart. It made me think, look, I did this mischief, and my mother not only does not punish me, she also pretends not even to see me. I'll never do this again. How can I upset her like that? With her stance, my mother was able to help me even more than if she had slapped me. But then again, I didn't take advantage of the situation by thinking, oh well, she's not seeing me now, I can do another more mischievous thing. Whereas my father, the moment I did something wrong, I got slapped right then and there. You see, they both love me, but it was my mother's noble stance that corrected me the most. Yeroda, some children are very naughty. They shout, they run, they break things. How can a parent refrain from spanking them? Look, again, it's not the children's fault. In order to grow normally, children need a yard to run, to play. Nowadays, the poor things are closed inside apartment buildings and are under a great deal of pressure and stress. They can't run about. They aren't free to play, to enjoy themselves. Parents shouldn't worry when a child is lively and energetic. A lively child has a lot of energy inside and can make great progress in life if this energy is channeled properly. Pressure does not help the children. Some parents are just too overbearing and apply a lot of pressure upon their children, particularly in front of others. It is as though they're dealing with a mule and trying to force it move ahead by using a switch. They hold the reins tightly, and then they tell them, walk freely. Then the children come to the point of beating their own parents. Just today a mother came here with her son, a tall young man who was sick. What can I do, Father? Our boy doesn't eat and doesn't even want to see us, she told me. I told her what to do, and then she asked again, what shall I do now? Perhaps, Yeroda, she did not understand what you told her. Of course she understood. I told her, I can't bear to sit an hour with you. How do you expect the boy to be with you all the time? You have driven him crazy. No, I love him, she said. How can you love him if he cannot relax being near you? He wants to leave the house because he wants to be in another environment. When he's away from you, he is fine. For him not to want to be with you must mean that you too are at fault for his situation. Don't provoke him. You're emotionally abusing the boy by treating him the way you do. Treat him kindly, with patience. Having said all that to her, she asked me again, what should I do? The boy does not want us. How can you communicate with a person like that? To have a boy that is perfectly fine and they make him out to be stupid. This is detrimental. Parents cannot help their children by force. They suffocate them. When they're constantly hovering over them, no, not this, no, not that, do this, but do it this way, they're not helping the children. They should pull on the reins gently enough so they won't break. They can keep watch over the children to keep them in line, but without creating a distance between them. They should do what a good gardener does when he plants a small tree. He ties it gently to a strong stake to keep it from growing crooked and from being harmed when the wind blows a little to the right, a little to the left. He waters it regularly, taking care of it so that its branches grow. He may also surround it with a fence so the goats won't eat it, for if the goats eat its branches and truncate it, the tree will be destroyed. A truncated tree cannot bear fruit. It can't provide any shade. Once the branches grow big and strong, then the gardener removes the fence, and the tree can bear fruit and comfort goats, sheep, and people with its shade. Oftentimes, over-concerned parents want to tie their children with wire. However, they should tie them gently in place without hurting them. They should try to help their children in a noble way, which will cultivate in them a sense of philotimo and help them view the good as a necessity. They must explain what is good in a good way with love and pain. I remember a mother whose eyes would fill with tears when she saw the children doing something wrong, and she would say with pain in her voice, "No, my sweet child." Through her good example, she taught them to struggle with joy, to avoid the temptations of life, to not be easily swayed by troubles, but to face them with prayer and trust in God. Nowadays, young and old alike live as if they were in a nut house, which is why great patience and much prayer are so necessary. Instead, some parents drive their children crazy. Like a clock that is a little damaged or faulty, the parents overwind it a little, and the springs break. Discernment is essential in such matters. one child needs more winding while another needs less. The poor children are exposed to all of the currents. They hear all sorts of messages outside. Don't respect your parents, don't listen to the authorities, don't respect anything. Then when the mothers try to tighten the reins, they rebel even more. This is why I advise mothers not to pressure their children, but to pressure themselves instead to pray more fervently. If they're always saying no to their children for the most unimportant things, or even unfairly, then when something serious is happening, for example, when the child is about to pour gasoline on a fire, the child may not listen to the warning and suffer great harm. A child does not understand that the parent's love is hidden in the no. And even when a child matures a little, it is then that egoism enters the picture, causing the child to rebel against them when they censure him. Their reasoning goes something like this: am I still a little child for my parents to treat me like this? The parents must help the children understand that just as when they were little and they had to be careful not to burn themselves, now that they are older, they need to understand that there are other fires that can burn them. This is why they must be cautious not to give rights to the evil one in order to preserve the grace of holy baptism. The indiscreet and excessive love of parents. Yeroda, can a mother out of excessive love harm her child? Of course she can. When, for example, a mother who sees her little child falling down while trying to walk thinks, "Oh, the poor child can't walk," she then holds the child constantly in her arms. If she doesn't hold the child by the hand a little, how will that child ever learn to walk? It is done out of love, but this excessive protection is harmful to the child. I met a father whose son had completed his military duty and who still accompanied him to the barber for his regular haircut. I brought my son for his haircut. How much will it cost, and when should I come back to pick him up? This man had crippled his child. The expression of love needs restraint and discernment. True love is selfless. It does not include ourself and is prudent and discreet. Prudence is especially essential in the abundant love of a mother, so it is not foolishly wasted. A young man once came to the Kalivi who felt exasperated with his parents. They certainly had good intentions, but did not know how to help their son. He was telling me how his parents were pressuring him and did not really love him and so forth. "Look," I told him, "when you were little and your mother bundled you with lots of clothes to go out in the cold, why did she do it? So you would not get cold or so you would suffocate? Her act indicated great love for you." And went on like this, and when he realized how much his parents really loved him, he broke down and cried. His mother really loved him. This love, however, did not help him because of the way she treated him, which caused negative reactions on his part. When needed, the mother must be strict with the child. It does not help when she takes the child's side too readily, just so she won't cause sadness. In Adana, a widow had only one son. John was his name. When he grew up a little, she took him to a cobbler to learn the trade. The boy stayed 1 week with the cobbler and then said to his mother, "Mother, there is no need for me to go to the cobbler anymore. I have learned the trade." "How did you learn so quickly?" she asked. "If you like, I can show you how they make shoes. Here, this is how they cut the sole, the leather. This is how they put on the heel, how they nail it." The master cobbler was very good, and he really wanted to teach John the trade, seeing that he was an orphan and needed support. When a week had passed and John did not show up at the cobbler's shop, he was worried about him and went to his house to ask his mother if the boy was sick. "What happened to John? He has not come back to the shop. Is he sick?" "No, he is not sick. He is very well," she answered. "Then why did he not come back to work?" "Well, why should he go back? John does not need to go back. "He has already learned the trade," she said proudly. "But how can you say that he has learned the trade in such a short time?" Then the mother proceeded to indicate to the cobbler how she, too, had learned how shoes are made. The cobbler laughed, bade her farewell, and returned to his shop. When he returned to the shop, the other apprentices asked about John, and he told them, "John is just fine. Not only has he learned the trade, but his mother has as well." I see this behavior in many parents today. They imagine that they love their children, but with the manner in which they treat them, they destroy them. When a mother, let us assume, out of excessive love, kisses her child and says, "There is no other child in the world like my child," then she is cultivating pride and a sick sense of self-confidence. After that, the child will not be obedient to the parents because he presumes he knows everything. The parents must also help the children from a young age to learn to assume responsibility for themselves. They should be given opportunities in the family to do small chores suitable for their age and not to want to have everything ready-made for them. Otherwise, they will encounter difficulties when they grow up. A master tradesman worked hard all his life to raise his children. They spent their days in idleness, wandering about the town. Even when they got married, they still expected things to be done by their father. When the father finally said that it was time for them to look after their own homes and families, they retorted, "That's just great, Father. How is it that you never left us uncared for when we were little children, and now that we've grown and have obligations, you're leaving us?" Distribution of property. The parents who have the economic means are responsible for providing for the future of their children. Naturally, the most important thing is to give them a good upbringing, then to educate them or send them to learn a trade to make a living, and later to help them acquire a home and so on. When our family came to Greece in 1924 from Pharasa in Cappadocia, back then with the exchange of populations, my father, as president of the town, saw to it that all the families of the town were taken care of. He left our family for last. Later, my older brothers complained to him, "Father, you took care of all the others and did not think of us." If someone is alone, he can give everything away and treat himself with indifference out of an altruistic and noble spirit. But if he has a family, he must think of his family. Of course, parents should not grow bold and give everything they have to their children all at once, because the children are inexperienced and may be vulnerable to this contemporary life, which has no bounds. Then they will worry all the more for not being able to help them any longer. They must also be careful to provide the weaker child with extra material help and even more emotional support, so that he is not overwhelmed with a sense of failure. Overall, they should take care of all their children with love and discretion, so that they can remain close and have harmony among themselves. It is rare to find families that are close and loving, living a spiritual life, where the brothers and sisters are not fighting over properties and estates and running to the courts. I knew a family of 7. The parents had some gold jewelry. After their death, the children agreed that the brother who took care of their parents in their old age should take the jewels. But he thought that his sister with the big family needed them more, so he gave them to her. She in turn thought that the other brother should have them, and he gave them to the other brother, and finally they returned to the first brother. This is exactly what was done by those fathers we read about in the Gerontikon. In the end, since the first brother did not want to keep them for himself, he gave them to a church. Note, once they took some grapes to Abba Makarios. Even though he liked grapes, he showed self-control and sent them to a sick brother who desired to eat grapes. The sick brother rejoiced to see the grapes, but he too did not wish to satisfy his desire, and gladly chose to send them to another brother who had informed him of his lack of appetite. But this brother did the same thing and sent the grapes to yet another brother. Thus the grapes made their round to many brothers without anyone tasting them. The last brother, not knowing that the grapes originally came from Abba Makarios, decided to send them to him as a gift. Abba Makarios recognized the grapes and marveled at the great self-control of the brothers. Palladios, Bishop of Helenopolis, Lausiac History. Dear listeners, thank you for listening. Our time is up, but we will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.